All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our first Friday for 2021 um, for the Cape Cod Technology Council. I'm Bert Jackson. I'm the CEO, and I want to welcome you all here today. We've got a great program. Uh, Beth Offenbacker, I'm sorry for all the beeps. People keep coming in here. And just wanted to wish everybody the best for the new year. I know it's been a little bit of a rocky start, but let's have high hopes for going forward. And I would also like to invite all of you to, in the chat, say hello. Who are you? Where are you from? If you want to throw in your LinkedIn profile, what town you're from. If you're from off Cape, it'd be great to hear from you. So, before we get started, I just want to introduce our new media partner, Cape and Plymouth Business Media. They've been helping us get some of the word out to a broader audience about our programming. So each event, Dale's going to give us a little quick tip on media. So Dale, why don't you take it away?
Hi everyone, good morning. Thank you, Bert. Happy New Year. I've been starting all my meetings the last few days saying it's been a tough new year. It's been a tough year. I like to be optimistic. My drum is that I'm beating is professionally we have to keep moving, keep focused. My job is to help try and do that despite everything that's happening. My tip today is I wanted to talk about social proof. If you haven't heard of this term, it's a term that was created in the 80s. Basically says people tend to follow the actions of the masses. And if the last year hasn't been proof of that, I don't know what is. So what does that mean for us as professionals? When you're doing business or you're making connections, around 80% of people statistically will do a search for you. So I would encourage you this morning or at some point, do a search for yourself. Do you search for your company name, search for yourself. What are you finding? Are you finding robust profiles, LinkedIn? If you're on social media, what are people going to see when they're looking for you? It's going to be really important as we move on, especially where we're still sort of in quarantine. People are using tools to find out more about the people they're doing business with or connecting with. So that's my tip.
Dale, thank you so much. I think we can all learn a little bit from that. Also wanted to briefly give you an update of what's coming up for programming. Our first Friday in February, I'm very excited about. It is the Marconi Society, and they are going to be speaking about digital inclusion. And I think that's going to be an important uh, technology social topic, something that we're trying to focus on a little bit more this year. For our coffee Q&As this month, a casual conversation with local people in tech. Next Friday, we've got Henry Hall. Henry, I think you're on the call here today. Uh,
I am.
Tuesday, the 22nd, we've got Will Rubenstein from E4ever. By the way, Henry's from Mass MEP. And then on the 29th, we've got Rick and Eric Pinney from the e-waste recycling. So some interesting programming coming up for that. You can go to our website at cctechcouncil.org and sign up for those, and we'd love to have you. So today, I'm really excited about our program. We've got Beth Offenbacker from Waterford, and I met Beth at the Boston Green Fest last summer, I believe it was. She gave a great talk there and thought that this would be a perfect thing to bring into the Technology Council. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Beth Offenbacker. Beth, you ready to go?
Yeah, I am. Thank you so much, Bert, and good morning, everyone. It's a delight to be with you. Thank you so much for your commitment to our green community on a broad scale. I can see many faces here, and while I start to share my slides, I just want to say, I think one of the big points for us to stay focused on is that spring is coming and the wheel is turning. So I, like Dale and Bert, Robin, others here, I'm optimistic about the coming year. There's a lot of exciting things occurring in the green sector, And your participation here shows that you similarly are excited about seeing how we can all be a part of what we call the big green shift. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about how you can either become a part of that or grow your participation in our larger commitment to environmental outcomes for the good of all people, all beings. I want to just begin with a short disclaimer. I'm an expert on green careers. I'm not a technical expert. So I'm going to share with you some of the different trends and give you kind of a big picture view of what that looks like with a particular focus on the Massachusetts, Greater Boston, Cape Cod area. And I'll also spend some time walking through some of those ways that you can access those particular technologies to advance your organization or your green career. So let's dive in a little bit further. I can see that folks have been introducing themselves in the window. Please continue to do that. We want to encourage people to connect with each other because networking is an important aspect of our career development. Now, I'll touch on that a little bit more later on. And share your LinkedIn profile too, if you haven't had a chance to do that already. As Bert mentioned, my background is in the green field. The Green Fest was one of many initiatives that I've participated in over the last several years. I'm a coach and I'm a consultant. I have a background working across all sectors, nonprofit, public, private sector, and at the local, regional, national, and international level. My focus is on energy and clean tech, green urban villages, conservation, forestry, and eco travel. And I will tell you that those are just a subset of the many avenues that you can pursue in terms of an environmental career. And I've worked with people at all professional levels as well. This is just a smattering of a few of the organizations that I've worked with over the past 25 years. And I'm more than happy to talk about any of these examples offline if you're interested. So here's our agenda for today. I'm going to talk a little bit about why Massachusetts is a leader in clean tech. I'm going to describe a few of the big trends that I see, the sectors with great opportunity on the horizon and thinking about jobs and skills. And then spend a little bit of time as well speaking about how you can make the big green shift in your career. And we'll have time for Q&A and discussion along the way as well. So I want to pause to begin with why we do this work. I want you to just take a moment and reflect with me. Is there a special place that's really important to you? That when you go there, you feel at peace with yourself, that you feel connected maybe to something a little bit bigger than you? It might be a place that's special for you individually, or a place that you've gone with people who are important in your life. What does it take to preserve that place for yourself to return to over and over, for your children, for your family, for future generations to be able to benefit from that particular experience? And so beginning with our why is all that I do with the people that I work with in the organizations. Why are you here? Why are you doing what you do? And what commitment do you have to helping ensure that place or that experience continues to be available to other people? And so that why is the foundation for not only what you do in your career, but it might also mean that you're a volunteer. Maybe you feel called to start an organization that addresses a big challenge. And so there are a lot of different ways that you can become a part of the big green shift. And it's always about returning to our why and finding out which path is right for you. It could be one of these, it could be two of them, or it could be all three. And I'll tell you that this has been a strategy that's worked for me. I've switched careers 3 times. I started out in the communications field, then I moved into urban planning and consulting on a range of projects in that realm. And now I work individually and with organizations and helping them to do this work so that they can be effective and deliver on the outcomes that they want. And so as part of that, volunteering, entrepreneurship, and as well my own individual career development have all played a part in that. So these are all strategies that I've used and that the people who I work with use all the time as well. So I want to also talk with you a little bit before we get started. You can hear me use the phrase clean tech, and some people might be familiar with that and some people might not. And so let me just share with you, one of the things that we're doing in my organization is trying to educate people about what is clean tech. And so this is a page on our website. I have a short video, and I'm going to be doing some ongoing videos that really explain a little bit more about this term. And you can see there's a little gallery here talking about the many different aspects of clean tech. It's also called clean energy. And so the gallery here, as it's scrolling, you can see it's categorized many different aspects of what it means to be in the green sector. And I'm going to speak to some of these when it gets to the trends. And so each of these little icons have a particular area of focus. So here for under air and environment, you can see here some of the different dimensions of what it means to have a career or be active in air and environment. You might be working on carbon sequestration. You might be working on emissions controls. You might be working on bioremediation projects or monitoring and compliance. And so each of these different aspects of clean tech have different career paths into those professions. So I won't have time to really go into that in detail, but just to give you a sense of the terminology that I use. All right, let's go back to the slides. Okay, whoops, I beg your pardon. All right. So let's dive into a little bit about why Massachusetts is a leader in clean tech and clean energy. First of all, it is a leader because it really has focused on how can you use energy efficiency as an engine for better outcomes economically, socially, politically. And so it's ranked by the American Association for Energy Efficiency as the #2 state nationwide in doing that, which again is a national recognition of its commitment to energy efficiency. There are some other factors that really make Massachusetts a leader. And one of them is it's part of a deregulated wholesale energy market. And so you can see here some of the different reasons for that. I'm not going to get into a lot of detail about it, but independent system operators and regional transmission operators oversee the nation's most competitive energy markets. And so when we think about Massachusetts, that is a big reason for the advance of its ranking as a leader. And so removing some of the barriers for the participation of energy storage has been a part of that as well. The state established its SMART program, which gives a financial incentive to integrate all of those different energy storage options, solar, wind, battery storage, into the energy transmission market. And so that has really played a role in Massachusetts' prominence in the field. Some other reasons: policy is a big player here in energy leadership, and as well as in any other field. And so there are several policy level commitments on the state and local level, and I'm going to speak to that a little bit more in a moment. So that sets the stage, that creates the agenda for organizations to provide funding and other resources that further Massachusetts leadership. Another key piece is that Mayor Walsh in Boston, as you all know, has been a real leader on climate issues. He leads the Climate Mayors Coalition, which is a coalition of more than 500 mayors trying to advance clean energy solutions and really address the big issue that's on the table in terms of emissions and greenhouse gas emissions. And so some of the things that he's been doing has also established Massachusetts as a beachhead, so to speak. There are a lot of institutions that are advancing new technology. I see someone here today from Boston University, MIT. There are other universities that are really pushing how do we use new technology to get to the outcomes that we want in our field. And so that also is a bright light for Massachusetts. And then for some years now, there's been a huge tech investor base in Boston. It's one of the big centers for technology investment. We see it on the biotech side as well. And so that has also given a good foundation for Massachusetts leadership in clean energy. And I'll also mention too, just going back for a moment to Mayor Walsh, some of the things, the policies he's put in place, the zero net carbon standards for buildings, the urban forest plan, and the zero emission vehicle roadmap that he's created also are pointing the way for investment and for private sector organizations, public sector organizations to get on board. So all of these things together help create a universe where there are job opportunities, because jobs follow the money. And so one of the key things to pay attention to is what policy is being implemented and what opportunities does that policy create for jobs. And so let's just talk for another moment about the energy wholesale markets. And so I spoke to this a couple of minutes ago. And so this ISOs are independent nonprofit regional transmission organizations. And so what in the Northeast, that means it's aggregating distributed energy resources. And so with all these different technology types, and so that this is something that's occurring, it's a result of a policy implementation at the federal level by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. That means that the possibility for opportunities to grow jobs in solar and wind and on the battery storage level is high in Massachusetts. So you can see that there are 7,000 to 8,000 megawatts of distributed resources in the New England system already out of 34,000. So that points to a lot of exciting new opportunities for individuals and for organizations too. So we're going to hear more about distributed energy, or as it sometimes is referred to in the trade press as a DER, in the coming months. And so this is just a little bit of a diagram for those who aren't familiar with distributed energy, how it works, right? So it's really trying to pull all of these resources together so that it's all part of the grid, and it's not just based on what used to be coal. That more and more energy companies are phasing out the use of coal, thankfully, for all the reasons we know are important. It's still part of the mix. We still have gas as part of energy generation. And so looking at some other options that can really diversify and lower our emissions impacts in support of hopefully our goals as part of the Paris Accord under the Biden administration. So let's just talk a little bit more too about some of the state level policies. You've all heard about this in the last month. The governor has really done a terrific job, I would say, in trying to focus the state on addressing greenhouse gas emissions. And so mandating that all new cars sold in the state be electric by 2035. It's very exciting to see him showing leadership on this. And so some of the things that he's also put on the table, retrofitting homes. The Northeast has, I think it's the highest proportion of homes that are heated by oil and by home heating oil. And so really trying to work on that and switching that over is important for all the reasons we know. Cutting commuters' driving miles by 15%, always a good thing, right? Using public transit and some more efficient uses of getting people around. And then, of course, offshore wind power generation. The cool things that are going on with Vineyard and Mayflower are super cool to see in the greater Boston area. So all of these things are setting up the dynamic for job growth in the greater Boston area. And so let's just spend a couple of moments talking about sustainable transportation. This is getting more and more play in the last few months. And I'm excited to see that there are a lot of the energy companies, utilities that are starting to think about this. How do we put in place the infrastructure that's needed to make this shift? And so the state wants to reach 30,000 electric vehicles. Right now, there's just over 6,000, but really trying to focus that shift from cars that use gasoline to electrics as a way of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So that is a super exciting advance, and technology is growing and thinking about how do we make this happen. And I'll also touch a little bit on some of the renewable trends too. There are a lot of interesting things happening here. The consolidation of the competitive landscape is anticipated. This is a report from Deloitte that they do annually. A lot of talk right now about hydrogen. There's been some coverage in the New York Times and other places saying that this might be something that could really help expand our infrastructure. Batteries continue to get more emphasis as well. I've touched on that several times. Some really exciting things happening there. Panasonic, other providers, Fluence, Siemens, a big player in this field, looking at ways to help. How can we advance the use of that technology? Wind going offshore, you guys know all about that in the greater Boston area, and you guys were a leader in having this conversation several years back. And then the last piece, there's some coverage, there are some other reports available that discuss disaster readiness. How do we think about some of the disruptions from COVID-19 and digitalizing supply chains as part of helping to ensure that we all have what we need? Because the economy runs on energy. Without energy, nothing happens. We wouldn't be having this meeting today. I'll also share with you a little bit about agriculture. This is another dimension that I think often gets overlooked, right? When we talk about the supply chain, it's not only how do we get, that delivery of something that we want in the most efficient fashion. It's also about ensuring that we all have the food that we need to eat. And so ag tech has been growing in recent years. And you can see some of the ways that ag tech is burgeoning: automation and robotics, biotechnology, genetic engineering, soil monitoring is huge, huge. If we don't have soil that's healthy, we aren't going to be able to grow the food that we need. And so there is a lot of exciting advances that are happening in the agriculture side. And then too, knowing that the marine dimension of clean tech is something that's focused on in the greater Boston area, and especially there on Cape Cod. This is something from NOAA that just describes some of the different aspects of marine technology. And so here are some from emerging technologies, just a few of the things that NOAA has observed that they're taking a look at. And so you can look at telepresence technology, looking at data and the information necessary to see what's going on the ocean floor, for example. Submersibles, environmental DNA. I think that's really exciting to see, taking a look at some of the organisms in the water column. So if the marine dimension of clean tech is exciting to you, we need you to focus on that, because the ocean not only is a great resource to us for relaxation and family enjoyment, it also is something that feeds many people, and we need a healthy ocean as part of our ecosystem. Dartmouth, the University of Massachusetts at Dartmouth has some really exciting programs that they're doing on marine renewable energy as well. So encourage you to check out their programs. Here are a couple of things that they do. They have a coastal engineering and fluid mechanics lab. Again, the value of universities they are really the leading edge of technological advancement. They can try things with federal funds, and their research labs that other organizations might not be able to pursue. And then they have a marine fisheries field research group. So looking at, there's just so many technological dimensions of this work that are exciting. And I will conclude this section of my presentation by also drawing attention to the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center. What a phenomenal organization. You guys are so lucky to have this organization. They're based in Boston, and they have several emerging initiatives that touch on all of these aspects of clean energy, from energy storage to microgrids. From a resilience standpoint, microgrids are really been focused on in recent years when you think about hurricanes and some of the weather incidents that we are seeing with increasing frequency. A great way to help ensure local resiliency. Clean transportation, another way of describing sustainable transportation. Energy resilience, offshore wind, and then water innovation too. So check out their website and some of the initiatives that they have going on in this field. So I've given you kind of a quick highlight tour of some of the different elements of clean tech, and I'm really curious, what aspect of what we sometimes call the green economy are you the most interested in? You might already be in our field, or you may be looking to move into our field. So I'm going to bring up a poll, and I want to ask you to think about and share with us which aspect of the green economy most interests you in your career. So we'll just take a minute if you would register your area of interest. And while you do that, I want to show you this map. This is something that I use in my career development programs with people, the green career workshops I lead, and then the small group mentoring for people moving into a green career or up in a green career. This is something from a book by Carol McClellan. It identifies the different sectors. There's 16 different quadrants here, or sectors rather, and I divide them into 4 quadrants. One is natural resources, nature, natural resources, the upper left here. The upper right is IT and green buildings, right? You can see information technology, buildings, transportation. Lower right, this really talks to the manufacturing side of things. And so I like to call that the circular economy. And the circular economy is a phrase that focuses on cradle to cradle use, not use it and throw it away and have it go to a landfill, right? So how can we have a loop to loop approach? When you think of the work of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation and several other organizations, that really is the work that they do. And then on the left-hand side is creating demand. That's around policy and education, services and experiences. So let me close the poll here and share the results with everybody. And it looks like from our participants today that 38% are involved in energy and utilities, including renewables, solar, wind, natural gas, and oil. We've got then followed by environmental science, including water, marine, agriculture, air, and biology. So very cool, and interest in, it looks like, all of the other sectors too, which is exciting to see, because I will share with you, I have experience in all 4 quadrants of the map here, and all of these things are related to each other. So I started out in my own work focusing on the tangibles over here in the circular economy. I worked for a public agency that worked on reuse of assets that the government had already purchased and providing them to other organizations. And then I moved into the whole urban planning field, the built environment side of things, thinking about green buildings and all of these different questions. Then I worked in several initiatives in the nature and natural resources side. And then I also have experience down here in this quadrant. So once you're in one of these quadrants, you can easily move to the other. And that speaks to the transferability of skills, which is an element that's important to think about when you consider your particular experience and when you're looking for that next opportunity. Let's talk a little bit about your particular career path. And I just want to kind of check the chat window here. I see some folks are posting questions, so maybe I'll just pause for a minute and respond to a couple of these before we we continue. I see Liz Argo. Nice to see you, Liz, here. Thank you for your work in the electric cooperative field, which is so important. And so you've asked if I can define my work in terms of recruiting and connecting potential employees with agencies looking for talent. So one of the things that I do, Liz, is I work with individuals who are looking for that opportunity. One of the organizations that I'm involved with is called Leaders in Energy, which is a nonprofit that helps educate people about clean energy opportunities. And so I'm a volunteer on their leadership team. I'm a director of training and development. And so we have a program every year that is about helping people understand what opportunities are available. It's a green jobs program that happens in the summer every year. So I do not do recruiting myself, but I encourage people to get involved with that organization and use their programs as a way to identify potential candidates and bring them into their application pool. So I'd be happy to talk with you offline about that. So our career paths, how do you define where you want to go and how you want to get there? And so this is something that I've shared with folks over the last couple of months when they ask this question about, I'm interested in moving into a green career. How do I do it? And so it's about looking for that on-ramp, right? And so from an employer side, it's around establishing access, like Liz was asking about. How do you provide access to people so that they're aware that your organization is looking for qualified candidates? And so on the employer side, that means creating a green recruiting plan that really reaches out through organizations like Leaders in Energy, like CCTC, of course, others that have access to the kinds of people that you'd like to have as part of your organization. On the job seeker side, it's around seeing that on-ramp and understanding the kind of role that you might want to play, having a very clear sense of your skills, your competencies, your knowledge, and your experience, and then figuring out how those match up with the particular needs of a hiring organization, with an eye towards some of these different influencing factors that I've just touched on a little bit in the big trends overview. So it's around creating for employers, creating that on-ramp, right? And for job seekers, it's around looking and finding that on-ramp. And so I use the trees metaphor to help people design what that career path looks like to the on-ramp, thinking about the timing of that, what relationships are going to support you in getting on that on-ramp, what's your expertise, your experience, and then being very strategic about it as well. You have to have a strategy. So the green career workshops that I lead are about having a plan and then a go-to-market strategy for your own career development. And so really thinking about your own career plan. One of my colleagues, Glenn Richardson, said, if you don't have a plan for your career, someone else will. So you want to be very specific. You want to have a goal in mind. You want to have a strategy for where you want to go, short and long term, and be open to some of those changing dynamics in the market. If there's a great opportunity, you do data science and the electric cooperative that Liz is with is looking for someone that does that, and you're really passionate about supporting the goals of that organization, that might be something you want to move to from another part of the sector or completely outside of the green field. It's around your own leadership too. What way can you help advance the ball down the field? Thinking about what are you called to do, what's important to you, and then with an eye toward your own specific experience and expertise, right? What is your skill set? That I call that your portfolio. So there are 4 different types of tech skill areas when it comes to our field, and I don't have time to really go into all of the particular discrete skill sets that are covered by clean tech because it is so expansive. But generally speaking, there are 4 types of tech skill areas. biology, chemistry, environmental sciences. We think about water, marine, agriculture, engineering, which touches on solar, wind, construction, and then the information technology side of things, data sciences. And so what I usually recommend to people that I work with is identify a title that you'd be looking to land in your next opportunity. You can do this with a couple of different titles, of course, but go to LinkedIn under their job listings and search for a preferred title. Put together a list of 10 different requirements across those jobs, and then look at what are they asking for, both what's required and what's preferred. And that will give you a real sense of the types of skills that fall across all of those particular job opportunities. And so that will, then you look at your own portfolio. You say, okay, I have these types of qualifications, and these are ones that I'm missing. I need to maybe think about getting a certificate in this, or I need a little bit more experience in that. And so really identifying those gaps and then figuring out how you can fill those gaps in a variety of different ways. And so this idea of the market, being aware, once you've done that kind of assessment, thinking about what they're asking for, really trying to spell out in a few sentences the challenge or the need that companies, agencies, or nonprofits have today for your own career development. How do you match up with what the needs of that organization is? Again, being aware of where you fall into that green economy map, and just really trying to specialize in that particular one or two sectors is usually what we encourage people to do. And then thinking again about your relevant training and experience and certifications. Opportunities too. You want to really follow the data. This is where some of the trends assessment, periodically checking in on what's going on in your particular field, following that through newsletters and other resources, your connection through professional organizations like CCTC, thinking about what's costing industry money, other trends that are driving policy, right? You want your sweet spot to be where the problems are and where the resources are going to address those problems. And then thinking about how your own skills and area of specialization matches up. Some of the growth opportunities that are out there as well, green finance is getting more and more emphasis. I see that as a growing area. I just saw yesterday that Apple has included environmental and social governance, ESG as it's called, requirements for executive performance. So they're putting it into the job description and how people are going to be rated in their performance reviews. So thinking about when we make financial decisions, are we considering the broader view of the impact environmentally and social governance on the communities that are touched by that particular decision. Green buildings is continuing to get emphasis. There's a PACE program that states have been rolling out, which provides some financing for retrofits that support energy efficiency, that drive building costs down. So that's something that's going to continue to grow. And so the whole technological side of that is very exciting. And so let me just pause for a minute. I know there's been some questions in the chat window, and let me respond to those. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. So there's a comment here from George that says, electric-only vehicles still have range and time to charge limitations. Is the state's mandate to sell only electric vehicles by 2035, expecting these problems to be resolved by then? If not, would hybrids be allowed as an acceptable compromise? George, that's a great question. I'm not read into the finer details of the state's plan. I think that it's going to be a phased approach from things that I've seen so far, realizing that it's just going to take time given the kinds of vehicles that we have in the small but growing proportion that are electric. So I would imagine, just from a pragmatic standpoint, that type of gradual transition is going to occur. And then let's see, Robin, it looks like Cape Space has posted a question. The administrative side of things, that green organizations must need accountants, risk managers, attorneys, marketing people. Each of these professions have specialty areas, but any tips from someone with experience in a support function who want to contribute their green skills to a cause? Robin, thanks for this question. It's something I get a lot from people who want to move into our field. Absolutely. About probably, I'd say, half of the people who I work with, and at talks that I give, ask this question, right? They are in that, maybe they are in a communications function. They say, I don't have an engineering degree, but I'd like to be a part of this field, or I don't have a technical degree in some area. Every organization in the clean tech sector has a need for people who do all of the things that you described. And so it might mean that you're able to engage as a part of the green movement, the big green shift, using those specific skills. So yeah, everybody needs a marketing arm, a communications person, administrative staff, accounting. And so I would look for those organizations that have a green related mission that you could become a part of. And so let's take one more question and then we'll move on. Steve says, dare I suggest that the Cape workforce includes a sizable retired, semi-retired, and older professional demographic? What roles are possible for these workers? Oh gosh, Steve, that's a great question. There are a lot of opportunities. So it really depends on the kind of role that people would find comfortable for them. Part-time opportunities, and more, there are job sharing options often with organizations. I think some of the gig economy impact we can see, and knowing sometimes there are limitations with the amount of hours that retired people can work. So that's certainly something to consider pursuing. The volunteer option, I'll speak to that in a couple of moments, is another way to be a part of the clean energy community. And then entrepreneurship is another way. One of the things that I see more and more are mentoring opportunities coming about for somebody who has a particular skill set that they'd like to encourage people to step forward on, whether it's someone who started a company or a professional mentoring option. So, someone who is, has a background in a particular aspect of the field, helping junior people to step forward as well. So those are all things that are options in the green community. So let me take a drink of water here. And then, okay, let's move on in the interest of time. I mentioned earlier the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center, and there are some great resources that they have available as you think about your own career development. And so if you go to their website, and you click on work in clean energy, you can see this great range of options. And so going back to Liz's question as well, the employer, they have several programs that connect the state's clean energy companies with workers, which is wonderful. And over here on the left, you can see if you're a job seeker, there are several ways that you can throw your hat in the ring, so to speak. A resume board, which is great. They have some job listings as well. And then the opportunity for paid internships for college students and recent graduates. So really encourage you to visit their site and get involved with them if you haven't already. Another thing I often am asked is about recession proofing jobs. And right now I can't think of a time of greater disruption economically over the last century, right? And so I encourage people to think about some of these options and to remember that you are always in the driver's seat in your own career. There is no way to completely protect yourself from the possibility that that organization might fold up its tent for a variety of different reasons, but you want to be always aware and you want to take positive action to take the best care of yourself as that you can. So I encourage people to look at some of the bread and butter organizations. Utilities, well, they are also subject to the vagaries of, the economy. Public agencies as well. We're seeing a lot of rebudgeting, reallocating of funds because of COVID out of some of the original budget allocations toward public health. But they have, they might have a little bit more of an insulation. So those are some options to look at. Larger organizations, you can look for security in numbers, but not false security. Again, always be aware. Some of the larger NGOs are good places to look. But again, remember some of the NGOs, think tanks, and professional associations get a lot of their money from big trade shows and events. And so when those things fall away, that means they need to pare people back. So there are some risks in every organization. The idea is just to go in with your eyes open and ask good questions as part of the interview process so that you have a firm idea of what really is going on financially and you can take the best care of yourself possible, professionally speaking. And so always be working on your portfolio, thinking about what are your existing core skills, the experiences you want to know, your specific skill sets, your experiences, what's transferable, have examples, and what professional development and training really supports you in accomplishing that career goal. And then looking at your education, again, what gaps are there on all of these areas and how do you get to that next level, that next position. The relationship piece, I've talked a lot about your career portfolio and understanding kind of the larger market. The value of relationships can't be emphasized enough. My mentor says relationships are the real work of work. And so looking for opportunities to stay connected with other professionals is important. That keeps you fresh, right? Because 85% of jobs, the data show, are from referrals, connections that you have. And so you want to really, just like this lovely little treehouse, you want to be able to provide a path to your door for that next opportunity. So investing time as well in relationships is important. And so if you're going to change a career path, what are some of the ways that you can do that? Maybe you're not in the green sector and you'd like to. One of the ways that I've been able to move from sectors is by doing pro bono projects, doing that assessment that I just described. How could I do a project that would help give me some experience or grow my skills in a particular area? So finding a nonprofit that you could support or a startup. Volunteering, another way to do that, right? Everybody wins. You get some experience, you might get a reference out of that. You grow your skills, and that's another great option. That's how I moved into my position with the Tree Care Industry Association. I became a tree steward here in my community where we plant and take care of trees. And that I was able to parlay that into a position with TCIA. And then networking, right? As I said, 85% of jobs are from connecting with others. So you want to make sure you're always making an investment there. And then always having a plan B, right? You might have the best job in the world and it could go away. So you don't want to just sit back once you've landed that position. You want to keep thinking about how you can stay fresh. Before COVID, I'd say on the average, it takes 5 to 6 months to land a new position, and it takes longer the higher your income level, right? This is certainly extended because of the economic situation that we're all amidst. So again, to continually focus on this is important. So let's pause here for a minute for some Q&A. Let's go to the chat window. And I want to do a quick little check on time. See how we're doing here. Okay, wow, we've got to wrap up here in a few minutes. So in terms of education, I can see Robin has posted, I'm guessing that the massive shift to distance learning has made this easier than ever. Can I suggest any online learning organizations, schools that focus on green skills? Yes, I'll come to that in a moment, Robin. There are several that I'd suggest. So let's see. And then Jane has asked about COVID influencing green careers. Yes, in fact, the question about well building, there are some really exciting things happening, thinking about that impact. There's more of an emphasis on it. There are several apps, Jane, that are that have been created that help to track. There's one, in fact, in the Greater Boston area. I did a podcast with Chris Blue with their organization a month or two ago, talking about how they use technology to help people be healthier in the workplace. So a lot more emphasis too on how buildings are assessed for wellness. I see that only increasing in time. So Fit Well and Well Building are two of the certification programs. So a lot of interesting things on the technology side as it relates to green buildings. So let's move on, since I know we're almost out of time. The volunteer path, I mentioned a little bit about this with TCIA. Really look for your passion. Like I said, with the tree stewards, it could be in one of these aspects of the field or another, but find the thing that really speaks to you and volunteer. Technology is something that has been integrated in pretty much every part of our lives. And so the skills that you have are probably ones that the organization could really benefit from. And so again, thinking about where is the need and the contribution that you can make. In the example of tree stewards, I became head of the training committee. My background in teaching was really valuable to them. And so that was one way that I could contribute to the organization. So look for that intersection that's meaningful for you. Being an entrepreneur is another way into the big green shift, and thinking about the need, and then from a solutions perspective, what can you do to help address that particular problem? I was a mentor in Clean Tech Open. So if you're a retiree, going back to the great question a few minutes ago, or someone who just wants to be a part of the big green shift, visit, here's a link here. You'll see, you can find this on the Clean Tech Open website. I was a sustainability mentor for a startup that was using feedstock, a range of resources to help create generators that don't use diesel fuel, which also has health effects, to be able to support energy generation on a community level for both here in the United States and in Nigeria. So that was exciting to help that little startup figure out what their business plan looks like, how do they go to market, et cetera. And so the call for mentors is currently open. They're also looking for organizations that want to be a part of the accelerator. So a great way to learn more about the field and get some experience as well. And then I always like to also mention too, thinking about those three paths, the big green shift, even if this isn't the time for you to do any of those things, individual responsibility is a core to making the big green shift. So make a personal commitment to making better choices, to buying local food, to eating sustainably, to riding your bicycle, using public transit, being aware of the energy usage that you have, There are some great organizationally green business challenges that let you assess what the policies are that you have in place in your business. Are you, recycling? How can you do a better job on all of those levels as an organization, and encourage people to use those practices? I've taken one through the Virginia Green Initiative as well for our organization, and there are others out there. And so I'll close by bringing us back to why we started, right? Your why, thinking about those places. This is along the Charles River, right? That are special to you, that you want to preserve for future generations. Or maybe it's an experience out in nature that you have a real deep connection to animals, and we can't survive without them. They need us and we need them. They can't advocate for themselves. And so to be a voice, to take positive action that helps ensure their ongoing existence is essential. That's a big part of being in the big green shift. And so just preserving these special places for generations to come, and helping to tie all those elements together individually, community, as well as on an organizational level, so that we can live here together in harmony with each other. It's really, that's what it's all about. A few resources that I'll mention here are several, a couple of a newsletter that is a really good one, Renewable Energy News Network. There's also some great stuff on the Net Zero Conference. Here are some of the other organizations. In terms of training, NYSERDA has some great, a neighboring state, my native state of New York, has some great free training available for people who want to get into the field. Like I said, the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center has some. I also encourage people to go to edX, some really good free certificate programs that universities offer. So those are just a few. And then from the agriculture side, Northeast Organic Farming, Climate Action Now are just a few that are doing some really good things on ag tech. So that's a lot, I know. And I think we are about at time. I'll just pause. I think we have time for maybe one more question. I'll look in the chat window and see.
I think you've covered most everything, Beth.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, let me stop sharing my screen, Bert, and I'll hand the baton back to you.
Beth, thank you so much. There's so much to digest here, and thank you for letting us record this so that we can put it up on YouTube and people can reference back to it. So we'll have this up on our YouTube channel hopefully this afternoon, and you can find that through our website. So Beth, it gives me real hope for the future in all of the things that we're talking about. So thank you for being such an advocate for this, and hope that we can have you back again sometime for an update.
Thank you, Bert. It's my pleasure. Please reach out to me, everyone, if there are any questions. I'm happy to talk with you one-on-one. I know that was a lot to digest.
Great. Well, thank you. Thanks to Robin from our program committee. Thanks to our board of directors. Dale, thank you. Cape and Plymouth Business Media. Also thanks to Open Cape, who's our First Friday series sponsor. And we look forward to seeing you all at the next event, either one of our upcoming coffee Q&As. Infrastructure Committee meeting is on the third Wednesday of this month, and then First Friday in February. So thank you all, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and have a pleasant weekend. Take care.